We, the Scythons, have a deep secret. We are psychic, at least some of us are. It's a secret so well kept that not even our population knows of it. With only the top 1% being aware that some are born with special abilities, even fewer people know what these are and how we use them for our interests. Maybe psychic is not the correct term for what we can do, but it's the best translation to galactic standard that I managed to find. We can see and interact with so-called ghosts and spirits of the past. Depending on the user's affinity with his or her powers, we can ask or force them to reveal information or do us some favors. These spirits are different from what many imagine them to be, though. Their strength and personality are not innate to them. They are sourced elsewhere. They come from the people. It's the common imagination that grants them powers. The ghosts' minds and forms depend on how they are remembered and what the living ones think of them. It does not matter if the people actually know that they are real and that their essence is defined by how they are perceived. The spirit of a terrible dictator would not only look ugly and decrepit, but interacting with him would reveal an equally awful personality. On the other hand, someone remembered for being good would look clean and be lovely to have a conversation with. Even if they cannot be seen or interacted with by non-psychics, these specters still haunt the places they are associated with or where they have unresolved business. All this to say that recently we initiated interstellar relations with the species known as humans, and let me tell you, their ghosts are something else. They were introduced to the galactic community some years ago, but we wanted to leave them be for some time before setting up proper delegations. Given the number of member species in the GC, we didn't want to overwhelm them in those first crucial years. That, of course, did not stop us from at least meeting each other. We just reassured them that as soon as the political storm calmed down, we would have a nice proper talk. Back then, when our species shook appendices for the first time, my junior warned me that he sensed something strange from those humans, insisting that the aura around them was very peculiar. Originally, I dismissed his concerns, thinking that his inexperience was talking instead of his brain, so I dispatched a better-trained Esper to take a good look at them. Once he came back, he said the same thing, that there was something strange about their aura, and he could not understand exactly what it was. I asked if he saw any spirits, but he replied that he met with humans outside their space sector, so it would have been very unlikely to find a human ghost there. Resigned, I acknowledged the fact that humans are indeed weird, and that further research must be carried out, secretly, of course. Years went by, and soon enough, I found myself at the edge of their territory. I met with a human ambassador to set up an embassy in their home world. Of course, before that, they invited me on a classic and boring tour of some of their worlds to show me the utter mediocrity of their planets. I wasn't really paying attention to their words or worlds while visiting the first two star systems. I was on the lookout for paranormal activity. I didn't actually see any personally because of the nature of my guided tour, but I didn't really need to. I could easily feel those ghosts being mostly human past relatives and the occasional human pets. But I was genuinely surprised at how positive the aura surrounding them was. I expected more negative and aggressive spirits given the reputation Terrans carry with them. Still, my colleagues were right. Those humans and their specters indeed have something odd about them. They surely are manifestations of dead beings, but it felt as if they didn't really ever leave their life behind, as if they were not really dead. I can't really explain this to someone who is not a psychic, but it's as if when hearing something you can't make out whether it's close or far from you, you just know that it can't be both. On our way to the last planet of the tour, I was informed that the next stop would be Alpha Centauri. Apparently, it's of great significance to humans. Having been one of their first colonies outside their home system, I was strangely excited to see what kind of ghosts I would finally find there. As soon as we exited hyperspace, I felt almost overwhelmed by the aura in this star system. I was sure a very strong spirit was somewhere nearby, but that was strange. One would expect ghosts to be on or near a planet, certainly not there, just outside of the system's electromagnetic sphere. I was then hit by a strong mental attack, but that as well was not normal. It was not like any other psychic phenomenon I've ever experienced, both in training and on the field. I felt the intentions of the spirit. It was examining, inspecting, judging me. I communicated my peaceful intentions, and as soon as it started, the interaction ended. Quickly, as I recovered my mental state, I rushed to the observation deck and looked out to the black void. There I saw it. A pristine-looking, shining, and clean starship was sailing trough space just beside our vessel. It was clearly an old ship, recognizable by the outdated design and crude construction, with limited armament and visibly rudimentary sensor array. I could see the ship, but the others next to me could not. The whole ship was a specter, but certainly not an evil one. Just by looking at her, I was embraced by a comfortable and warm feeling that I can't really describe. Next to her, I felt calm. I felt safe. I tried to examine the craft without attracting too much attention for staring at something that wasn't there for anyone but me. Analyzing the mysterious starship, I noticed some words written in old human characters on her side. Sneakily, I used my translator to understand what those words meant. UNSS Indefatigable. I was still lost in my thoughts when the human ambassador asked me if I was feeling well, noticing how I was looking at the distant stars. I asked him about that strange ship, hopefully without sounding too suspicious, by saying that I heard of it from another human. Unsurprisingly, the diplomat was quite surprised, but not displeased. He asked his subordinate for a smart tablet and showed me the bright screen. I took a look at a lengthy list of names and saw the UNSS Indefatigable grayed out amongst hundreds of others. Not only was the color and font different compared to the rest, but it was also the only one with the UNSS prefix, probably a relic of past times. I asked for clarifications. This is a list of military ships currently operating in the Alpha Centauri star system. I was very confused. How could a ghost ship be in active service? Do humans know of spirits as well? No, that could not be possible. We checked several times and none of them showed any noteworthy proficiency for psychic abilities. Why is that name different? The human smiled. I felt a strong increase in spiritual energy around us, as all the humans who heard my words showed the same facial expression. Well, that would be the good old UNSS Indefatigable. We haven't seen her in a while, but that old lady never failed us, or her mission. I was just speechless. I tried to make sense of what they were saying. When was the last time you saw her? I noticed the smile on the human's face shifting from joyfulness to sorrow. Over 300 years ago. The mood in the room changed. I felt the room getting colder. She was the flagship of the Alpha Centauri flotilla back when we were just setting up primitive colonies here. She and her crew distinguished themselves in supply operations and by destroying 2 potentially devastating asteroids heading for our populated planets. Then, after years of exemplary service, her mission profile was suddenly changed after a catastrophic explosion of her main reactor. I stood there in silence. I looked back at the proud ghost that was escorting us to our destination through the cold emptiness of space. So she was lost in space, I sadly murmured. The human gave me one last prideful smile. Lost? No, she is not lost. I'm sure she is still somewhere out there, ever loyal to her duty, ever loyal to her people. She is simply on eternal patrol. Brief report on human ghosts, Part 2. My visit to Alpha Centauri was quick and memorable. Back then, I lived under the assumption that I knew everything there is to know regarding paranormal activity, but what I saw there was simply out of this universe. Still, nothing could have prepared me for what I would encounter in the solar system. The previous interactions with the human spirits left me tired and in dire need of some rest. I was still sleeping when we flew past Pluto's orbit and did not fully awake until we reached Jupiter. During my slumber, I felt a deep and ancient spiritual energy drastically increasing as we were getting closer and closer to Earth. I dreamt of something calling from beyond the void of space, someone waiting for my arrival. It felt as if it had always been expecting me, calmly and patiently, as if everything was and had always been planned. I woke up confused and shivering. But I had no time to think about what my visions meant, as around the rings of Jupiter I could feel yet another remarkably strong, ghostly entity nearing our ship. This presence felt the complete opposite from the vessel I encountered in Alpha Centauri. This spirit was furious, violent, upsetting, and extremely cold. Obviously, being a human spirit, something had to be out of the norm. Usually, spirits by their nature get weaker and weaker as they are slowly forgotten, their memory lost through the sands of time. This one, though, was one of the oldest I've ever encountered, and certainly one of the strongest. Trying to communicate with it was useless at first, as it kept ignoring me, but I could sense his presence getting closer and closer. I made my way to the observation deck. As I was standing alone in the room, I saw something out there in the dark emptiness of space. A mysterious shape was taking form while approaching at great speed, something sinister and terrifying both to the eyes and the mind. Shattered sails blowing in the solar winds and rotting hull riding the electromagnetic waves. A vessel of old flying a flag of a lost cause but serving a new one. Its presence alone was enough to disperse all the benevolent spirits and dare the wicked ones to even stand in its way. None were left as it came into full view. It came to a stop right before my eyes. A bone-chilling and unnerving feeling clouded my mind, filling me with negative emotions and despair. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" It did not respond, out of pride, out of arrogance. "Talk to me!" I used all my spiritual strength and the most powerful of techniques to interact with it, but it seemed absolutely unbothered, almost annoyed. "Do not force yourself with those futile attempts. I will speak to you only because she wants me to." The fact that someone was ordering this spirit around like a pet left me both surprised and frightened. I wanted to ask its identity, but it preceded me. Out of greed, I was lost during a storm. Back in time, I was cursed to sail forever and brought misfortune to all those who saw me. I made a deal. I will continue to exist. I will continue to sail, not on Earth, but here, in space. I could not believe what it was saying. It was clear this ghost was forced to form a contract, but I never heard of spirits being constrained to do these sorts of things, especially strong ones. "This is a warning, stranger. I am to bring destruction and despair to those who mean harm to humanity, as I brought scourges to humans, I now do to aliens. Mind your intentions, and nothing displeasing will happen." It then sailed away, bringing with it that powerful aura that oppressed my senses almost to exhaustion. Before it was too late, I made an attempt to know its name, but it literally ghosted me. Hastily, I looked around to see if I could spot a name or any references that would suggest its identity. The only thing I managed to catch was the weathered flag atop the tall mast, barely making out the faded features of what I assumed was an ancient empire. 3 horizontal stripes, orange, white, and light blue. 3 human letters, Vios. Somewhat upset, I returned to my quarters and decided to get a good night's sleep, both to restore my depleted spiritual powers and to prepare myself for the upcoming visit to Earth. I was fully expecting to have the same unpleasant rest as I had earlier before, but I was genuinely surprised when, after lying down, a comforting aura led me to quickly fall asleep. I woke up as we were already orbiting Terra. Everything at first seemed normal, but the longer I was awake, the more I realized something was off. I could not hear the quiet yet persisting humming noises of the main reactor. I could not hear the crew walking by my door as they moved through the corridor. I could not hear anything at all. All I could feel was an impossibly powerful spiritual energy lingering all around me. It was so intense I had to stop using my psychic senses, but even then I could still feel the warm embrace of that aura. I got up from my bed and moved to open the door. I slowly walked the empty hallways and silent rooms until, after roaming aimlessly for what seemed an eternity, I found myself there, on the usual observation deck. Looking out, I was not met by the black, indifferent, and cold void of the universe, but a beautiful celestial body that was slowly and elegantly rotating to show me all its features and charm. I was so mesmerized by this spectacle that I failed to immediately notice a faint light out there, alone in the middle of space. As I spotted it, I stood there, quietly observing it from a distance, trying in vain to understand what it was. Struggling to see, I energetically rubbed my eyes, only to no longer find myself on the observation deck after opening them again. I wasn't even on the ship. I was floating in space, or what I thought was. Panicking, I started gasping for air, but that was not necessary. I soon realized I didn't really need to. I didn't even need to breathe. Trying to recollect myself, I took a moment to think of what was happening. I had no explanations other than this being a paranormal phenomenon I never even imagined to be possible. I could fly. I could move freely. I spent minutes doing nothing but joyfully gliding here and there without a care in the world. I thought I was free. But every time I looked back at that light, something deep within me urged me to approach it, and so I did. Getting closer, I realized what that strange glare was. It looked like a young human boy, not an adolescent yet, but not a toddler either. It was playing alone. With no one, with nothing, it was running around, catching and throwing invisible objects, or at least something even I could not see. I was almost close enough to call out for him when I was confronted by a blinding show of light that materialized right before me. I stopped immediately and covered my eyes and ears when it spoke. "Halt! Who goes there?" Even as I was not using my spiritual senses, its voice and presence was so powerful it left me stunned for a split second. Somehow, I managed to communicate my distress and begged for him to lower his powers. I then hesitantly uncovered my eyes and ears, but my jaw dropped at the mere sight of that being. I dared not use my psychic abilities as I knew I would only damage my mind if I tried to. I've always thought that the most frightening spirit would be vile, filthy, and wicked in nature, but as always, I was wrong. What I had before me was the most upright, virtuous, and rightful aura I have ever set my senses upon, and by far the scariest one. It was bright, very bright, so much so that it was hard to make out its shapes and forms, and it certainly did not help that they were ever changing. Every second, its face was different. I saw thousands of faces from all human ethnicities, ages, and sexes. They mixed and blended, leaving only the faint silhouette of a typical human facial structure. Every second, its clothes were different. Battle uniforms from all times and places, of all nationalities and organizations, from bulletproof vests to dirty and torn rags. Every second, its weapon was different. From primitive and outdated melee weapons to the newest plasma rifles, sometimes it simply was unharmed as the only weapon at its disposal was himself. Scared and intimidated, I instinctively assumed an aggressive yet defensive position, a relic of our past as prey. It did not move an inch. Who are you? What are you?" It literally looked down on me. I just stood there shaking, fully expecting to be casted to the depths of the underworld. Its reply was not an attack, but maybe something worse. Something resounded with extreme force in my ears, echoing in the emptiness of space. It was not a single voice. It was thousands, hundreds of thousands, all speaking different languages, but all meaning the same thing. Unknown by name, yet known by death. Have lived millions of lives and suffered millions of deaths. We will always serve. I was actually trembling, begging all the gods for the safety of my soul. Not for recognition, not for fame. We have all died and been left in unmarked graves. We stand guard for eternity, protecting the souls of our kind. We are to ensure no one does what humanity did to itself. We are the unknown soldier. Confused, I tried to make sense of the situation. "Did you bring me here? What do you want me to do?" "She wants to speak with you. We are here to verify you mean no harm to our people, to yourself," it said, as he started to vanish as unexpectedly as it appeared. I tried to ask more, but there was no one left to argue with, only the small little child out there in the distance. Slowly, I floated my way there. He seemed unfazed as I got closer and closer. He kept playing and laughing alone. Eventually, I stopped just before him. I did not dare to speak or move. He kept doing what he wanted. He kept playing as he wanted. He ran circles around me, chasing inexistent things and laughing at unhearable jokes. Eventually, he talked to me. "Are you here to play with me?" His appearance, voice, and face were simply too pure for me to properly describe them. It was as if pureness itself was speaking to me. I could not reply. I simply couldn't do it. I had to change the argument. "What are you doing here, little one?" "I didn't get to play much back then, so I was promised I could play as much as I wanted out here. Don't you want to play?" I tried to take a hold of myself, trying to act my age. "Play with you, sure. You seem so lonely. What would you like to do?" The child had a surprised look on his face, as if I just said something so wrong even a child would know better. "Alone? What do you mean, alone? I'm here with all my friends." Baffled, I almost broke down in tears when I lost control of my spiritual powers. My emotions got the best of me. I closed my eyes to try and focus to turn them down when I felt something moving next to me. Startled, I looked behind me just to be shocked yet again. All around me, hundreds, thousands, millions, and more souls were happily playing. Ghosts of young humans of all ethnicities could be seen running around, playing with balls and toys. We were in the middle of a celestial park extending as far as the eye could see and mind wonder, and all around us, an unending army of spirits was watching over this sacred space. Ships and crafts of ancient and recent times, warriors and strategists from all the eras, good and evil entities of all kinds and commanding them all, bright and mighty, ever vigilant and proud, the unknown soldier. I turned towards the child. I did not need to ask. We are the souls of the innocent. We have been granted here what we were denied in life. Childhood, prosperity, happiness. We can enjoy ourselves as much as we want, and when we are ready, we will join our brothers and sisters in the afterlife, where everyone is equal, where everyone is happy. As I already said, I thought I knew everything there was to know about spirits and ghosts. I now realize I knew nothing. I wanted to ask loads of questions, but I was interrupted even before I opened my mouth. She wants to speak with you. As he said those words, all the spirits around me faded away in the nothingness of space. I thought I was left alone, but again I was wrong. I looked around and soon realized the only thing left to keep me company was Terra. I stared at the blue orb looking for a message, for a hint, but nothing came. It took all my courage to speak out and ask who was there. And she replied, "I am known by many names, but truly a real name I do not have." I instinctively nodded. Earth, Mother Nature, Gaia, Terra, and even God. I've been given countless names, but I am just the daughter of my children. How could this even be? I thought out loud. Humans imagined my existence and therefore I am. But they also think I gave birth to them, so I did. The moment I was created, I have always been here. I know it's hard to comprehend for your limited mind. Letting the unintentional insult slide, I finally asked her why I was brought there. The following moment of unending silence rang louder than thousands of words. I am concerned for my children. I fear you might mean harm to them. I swear to the gods, not ever in my mind would I ever think of getting on the human's bad side after experiencing a fraction of this power. I called you here because you are the only ones who can actually communicate with us. You are the only ones amongst the cosmos who can hear my concerns. Not even my children can. Not until they are history. Again, I nodded at a planet. I would like you to look after my children. Nothing too difficult, don't worry. Here on Earth, I can keep an eye on them myself, but I can't reach out in the void. I need someone to make sure they don't get in too much troubles out there. At first, I felt terrified. This spiritual energy was the purest, densest, and most powerful I have ever felt, and ever will for that matter. Initially, I was simply overwhelmed. But soon enough, that energy permeated my very being, calming and easing my soul. Despite all of this, I felt a slight bit of sadness hidden behind all that positivity. I asked what was bothering her. You see, my children are leaving. They are leaving this planet. They are now spread amongst the stars. They are leaving the safety of my reach. Safety my ass, I thought. That is a death world. No, not even. That's a hell world. Slowly, they are all moving out. Not out of hatred or unhappiness, they are departing out of curiosity. They want to see the cosmos and explore space, entrusting their fate to the stars. Despite all I can offer here, I can't offer them the whole universe. They are even thinking of making Terra a holy world, a place where human presence is kept to a minimum to preserve its nature. But that would leave me alone out here. I would love for them to stay, but I won't stop them from follow their dreams. I really couldn't say anything at that point. But I will always be here. Every day by my will, water will keep flowing. Flowers will keep blooming. Nature will keep prospering. This planet will keep sustaining life. I will maintain the electromagnetic sphere. I will keep all the animals, all the plants safe. I will always keep everything as when my children left. Be it hundreds, thousands, or millions years, I will still be here. I will always be here. If humanity ever wants to come home, I don't remember much of what happened after. All I remember is my assistant energetically waking me up saying that the human delegation was waiting for us to land on Earth. All I know is that I found myself crying alone in my room as soon as my assistant left. If you love engaging stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with all the latest episodes from FY Stories.